endless skies. Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained I thrive, I
All right, thank you so much for joining us on Nomads 50 Plus. My name's Chris Kalaboukis. I'm back in sunny California, and I am your CTO of games. Wait a minute.
And I am Mary Bartnikowski, your CEO of Fun, and I have a special offer for you. I'm going to be doing a solo travel, kickstart your solo travel life online. So come on over to my Substack, Mary Bartnikowski. We'll have that link below. And then you'll know when it comes out because then you can get traveling this year right away and do it. Just do it.
Still early. It's still early. I know the summer's here, right? It's nice and warm outside. It's still early. Still
That's
early in the
right.
year.
That's right. We still
Nice.
got a lot of 2025.
Yep. So I just got back from Greece. Spent a couple of weeks working in Greece and then a week traveling around Greece and then a week in London. And oh
Nice.
my God, every big city is chock full of tourists.
Yeah.
It's like just chock full. And I think I had an idea for this. It's like over the last couple of years, we've been to Italy, we've been to France, or been to Paris, been to Rome, been to Venice, been to London. And every single time, whenever we went to these big cities, we were surrounded, we were inundated by tourists. And in fact, I had an idea is that we should go visit these places and instead of doing social media photos of the thing that you're trying to take a picture of, like for example, the Mona Lisa, you just take a picture of the crowds
Yeah.
around the thing. Like stand up and instead of pointing at the thing, take a picture of the crowds at the thing because nobody understands how crowded these places are, how busy these places are, how many tourists are just flooding these places. It's
And you're
just
paying top
insane.
dollar for
Yeah.
the privilege of being completely engulfed in tourism.
Exactly, exactly. So you're not sitting in a serene gallery enjoying artwork. You're standing in within a crowd of people who are screaming at each other, all jostling to try and get a picture of this one thing or this whatever it is. And it's impossible. It's like we would go to museums. Like we just went to the British Museum, and the British Museum was phenomenal. It was beautiful. It was a great thing. It's free and there's just so much interesting stuff in there to see. But, the lineups were insane. And then once you get inside, you're surrounded by people. So it's almost impossible to enjoy anything.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's like how do you get to enjoy your life or enjoy the traveling when you're surrounded by tourists all the time?
I
It's
have
insane.
the answer. I've got the answer
I
for
knew that you
you.
would have the answer because you are the CEO of fun.
Yeah. And, I'm going to tell you a story. I have never told this online. Okay.
Wow. Let's hear
Middle
it.
of, yeah, let's see. Okay. So it was the January winter in Rome. Never seen the Vatican before.
Hmm.
Never seen the Sistine Chapel. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go early in the morning. I'm not going to do that. I did the skip the line,
Yeah.
but they just, opened the gate. Anyway, there was no line to skip. I just put
Wow.
me in the front of a few people. Anyway,
So you paid for skip the line and you didn't really need to skip the line because you were already at the
not in
beginning of the
winter.
line. Okay.
No, just show up early.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was hell bent on seeing that Sistine Chapel. I didn't want to see all the other artifacts. I
Yeah.
wanted to
Who
get right.
cares?
Yeah. And it's not easy, like it's not near the entrance. You've
No.
got to walk about a mile to get to it. And
Yeah.
guess what? There was no one in the Sistine Chapel
You got to be
except
kidding me. Because we
me.
were there, it was packed.
Yeah. How
And
can
it
you
was so
see?
noisy. It's like
Yeah.
it's so funny because it's packed full of people. And of course, everybody says no photographs, right? So you cannot take pictures and there's
I could
people
take as many
ensuring.
photographs as I wanted, and no security guard
Yeah.
was even there. And
And they're
so I'm in there by myself for half an hour. Nobody
wow.
came in. Not one
So
person. I felt like I was having this religious
that's amazing.
experience.
Well, it
And
is. It's phenomenal. It's incredible. I mean, everyone must experience it, but that's the
everyone
best way.
must.
That's the best way to experience it. So your tip is like go super early. Is that what it
Go
is?
super
Or
early and
yeah,
go in winter because you're not going to, even if you go super early in summer, it's not going to be like that. So there
yeah.
were two things that happened. I had the Sistine Chapel to myself,
Mm.
no security guards, even they didn't show up. They were probably hobnobbing with their
They
espresso
were
in
having their
another part of the
espresso. Yeah,
museum.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so, oh, and then, okay, I spent about an hour in there, and then people kind of slowly trickled in after a half an hour.
But
And
not too
then
many.
this is
Not too many people.
oh, hardly any.
Yeah.
And then when there was maybe 10 people in there, this priest showed up and said, "Does anybody want a blessing here in the Sistine Chapel?" I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
"I do. I want a blessing." So I went up and I thought, "This is like a miracle. The guy's blessing me in the Sistine Chapel." And
Chapel.
everybody else was scared to come forward. It's like, "This is my home here. I'm coming over to this guy." And I'll never forget it. Like that was
Amazing.
so amazing. And I don't feel like that's a door that's closed to other people. I just think you have to go off season, and I mean off season
Yeah.
when it's cold. So what? There's no crowds, there's no
Yes.
lines, there's
Yeah.
no problems. You can go to a restaurant and sit down immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is Rome. We're talking about Rome.
Yeah.
And so if you don't go to those main touristy places and you go to less touristy places, you're going to have a fabulous time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tips on how to do that.
Yeah. But the off-season thing is I think the key because I think that's what we found is that we were traveling through May, end of May, so like the last couple of weeks of May, and it
That's
depends on
high
where you
season.
were
Yeah.
because when we were in Greece, it was still not high season yet. It was still very, very early, very, very early. So a lot of places weren't even open yet. Right? But if you wanted to experience, the ruins, and if you wanted to experience sort of like these historical things like churches and whatever, that was the best time to go because nothing was inundated with anything, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
was nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
But then as time went by, it got busier and busier and busier, and the high season like started. And when we got to London, it was just mayhem. It was just absolute mayhem. Although places like London probably are mayhem all year round, right? There's no such thing as an off season in some of these cities, right?
I've only been to London once, but I didn't find it to really be mayhem, but I hadn't traveled much when I went. And so comparison, what I thought it was amazing. I mean, we were only there a couple nights, but taking the tube and, I just thought it was great. Went to a play. I mean, to me,
Oh,
I
it's
mean, now,
fantastic, but it is a big city and
yeah.
it is crowded. So you do have to understand that.
Well,
So you
I
can't.
did have more fun seeing Stonehenge and, going to what's that place where Stonehenge is. It's the real hippie druid place.
Yeah,
I can't think of the name, but that place was wonderful. Like nobody was there. And this was
nice.
June. But see, here's what I'm seeing, and I'm talking to people that are in the tourist industry renting out their apartments. So my friends in Sicily that rent me the apartment say there's almost no downtime anymore. Like as soon as Easter hits in Sicily, I mean, when I leave, the week I leave, there starts to be a lot of people in town and
Yeah.
it's actually noisy because I always stay in the center.
Yeah, I think what's happening is that people are getting it, right? They're going, I don't want to go when it's crowded. So the high season is sort of expanding on both ends,
Yep.
right? So it's ending up so the shoulder season is now becoming part of the high season. And so really if you want to get away from everybody, you go in a completely low season. So you go in the middle of winter or whatever, like you were mentioning, and then you don't get that. You're like early and in the middle of winter, then you're definitely not going to get the crowds. You're going to get quiet.
That's what you get, even in
Yeah.
the big cities. And then, well, the other thing you can do too, if you're not going to Europe and you're feeling more adventurous, you can do a lot of different things in other countries.
Mm.
Um, like I was telling you last time in Cambodia at Angkor Wat, 2,000 people were at the main temple, but nobody was at the Angelina Jolie temple.
There's an
I was
Angelina
there by
Jolie temple.
myself.
Why did they call it that?
Oh, I just call it that because no one knows. Like it's the Tomb Raider. when she was in that. So anyway, it's like the second most famous temple. And so what's it
Right.
called? Top Prom.
Yeah.
But nobody knows that name. So I always called that. But nobody was there.
Yeah. Why do
And
we
it was,
always have
it
to
was,
go to the most famous temple? I mean, that's the thing that this is I used to do this thing just for fun. Is that you know how when you go to a restaurant that you've never been to before, you
yeah.
ask what's the most popular thing on the menu, right? Because people do that. They say what's the most popular thing on the menu. So I would start asking what's the least popular thing on the menu? What is something that nobody orders? And every
Yeah,
time I
that's a
do
good
that,
question.
every time I do that, the server is like taken aback. They're like, "What do you mean?" Nobody wants the least popular item in the menu. And but sometimes it was actually really good. Like I would order
Yeah.
it and it was really good. And
Yeah.
sometimes, of course, it was a complete disaster, and I'm wondering why they even had it on the menu, period. But
What I do is ask them what they like to eat.
right,
And they,
that's probably smart and safe thing to
well,
do.
I did that last night. I mean,
Yeah,
I already ordered it and he said, "Oh, that's my favorite thing to eat." And I didn't ask him and I said, "What else do you like?" And he told me another dish that I was thinking of too, but I thought, well, I'm going to go back next time and get that one because
yeah.
it's his recommendation. I mean, they know, they try everything.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. So if you do want to see these popular places, the best thing to do is to do it off season and early in the morning. I mean, I had the same issue
Absolutely.
with Kyoto, and we were in Kyoto, we were in the main shrine there, and it was ridiculous
Yeah.
how packed it was. And I'm
Yes.
like, wrong time of day. And somebody actually said, it's like if you want to come here when it's empty, come here at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm
Yeah.
like, absolutely. Right? I mean, it's kind of like anything else. And of course, the temple is, or the shrine is open 24 hours. So you can be there at 5, you can be at 4
That's
o'clock in the
cool. And
morning.
see the sunrise.
Exactly. So that's
How
probably the
fun.
best way to experience it because there's nobody else there. But, if you can live with the suffering of having to get up that early and traveling that early and getting there that early, then you will really have the full experience as opposed to being, because as far as I'm concerned, I mean, that being surrounded by tourists really kind of destroys the experience, doesn't it? I mean, you
It
just do
takes
not get,
away.
it very much takes away from the experience when you're surrounded by so many people
It,
doing
you
the
know,
same thing.
it's different when you're surrounded by locals, but if you're surrounded by
Yes.
tourists, it's really icky because you hear these conversations you don't want to hear. It's just stupid. I mean,
Yeah.
you feel like, what am I doing with all these 10? And to take it further, same thing in the winter in Florence, the Uffizi, that probably the most famous museum in the whole world in
Hmm.
Florence. And then also where Michelangelo is. So it's in January and they had they open at like 8. So I get there and I'm the only one in line.
Mm.
I didn't need to skip the line
Skip the line
ticket.
ticket.
And so it was like, I don't know, 12 euros or something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I go in the Uffizi, I'm probably saying it wrong. And I get to be with all of these Botticelli and alone. There's
Mm.
nobody else there. And some parts weren't even open. So I went to the little cafeteria and had a Prosecco and was just like, I can't even, this is amazing. This is like a
Nice.
miracle. And this beautiful view, nobody's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, then it becomes this spiritual, mystical thing. But how can you have that when there's 10,000 people around you? I don't think
Exactly.
you can.
And the thing is that I think all of these places are open year round,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
it's not like, I mean, there's some places I know in Greece, it depends, like the restaurants and some of the hotels and stuff like that, they
yeah,
shut down
yeah,
over the winter. But a lot of the historical places, things you want to experience, things you want to see, they are open year round. And it's actually the best time to go see them if that is what you want to do, if you want to see these things. Because I think a lot of times when we go to these places, especially if we've never been before, we want to do that thing. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we went, is so we
sure.
can experience these things. But the best way to experience them is in the off season. So I think promoting this like an off season travel thing, I think is probably really important. It's kind of a mind shift change, right? Because
It
everybody's thinking
is.
about how I'm going to go during the summertime, but especially if you're older and you don't have kids and you are digital nomading around the world, you really have the flexibility to go anytime you want,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And the thing is too that I think it's worth changing your lifestyle to have it be that way because you're going to have a much richer experience traveling and have such a better time. Oh, and the other thing too is, yeah, some restaurants are closed, but the restaurants that are open, you're not standing in line to get in there. And you can actually, I've had so many interactions with the chefs and the owners and the real people that work there. And I'm so grateful that they stayed open. They're smart. They know that there's still going to be people there and wonderful conversations with these people. And you wouldn't have that if there were 9,000 people behind you
Yeah.
waiting. Like people aren't that friendly when they get kind of over stressed. Like by the time I show up in Sicily and rent my apartment that I always rent for my people, they're like panting. They've like been through the ringer and like they're
Yeah.
not complaining because they're making good money and stuff, but they're like, oh, it was really even they're overwhelmed. And these people are lovely. Like they
Yes.
don't ever complain. They're so sweet. And I thought if they're even saying this, then they got slammed.
Yeah. But if you think about it, I mean, all of these places
Yeah.
have people who live there, the
Yeah.
locals who live there. And the locals who live there go to these restaurants, right? So even in the off season where there's no tourists around, that is the best time to experience anything because you're getting the true flavor of what the place is like without the
Exactly.
tourists there.
Exactly.
And that's so it's like if you think about it, we should just flip the script and go, listen, you know what? I'm going to travel from October to March or
Yeah.
something like that because
Yeah.
that's the time when I get the most authentic experiences wherever I go, no matter where it is. I'm assuming that's like Northern Hemisphere, of course.
Yeah.
It really depends on where you are, but it's the same. It's the same for everything. It's like always travel and like imagine yourself traveling in the off season and get over the fact that these places may not be busy, but at least you're going to be getting a more authentic experience.
Well, and it's a myth that people are afraid of things being cold and it raining. I mean, I gotta say, when I did my South America 6 month trip and I got to Machu Picchu, it was very rainy. But do you think that took away from the experience? No, no mud was going to change anything for me
No,
with Machu Picchu. I
yeah,
mean, there were so few people there. I mean, I know now they've changed it so that you have to have a guide. Unfortunately, that's too bad because I actually liked just wandering among the stones and looking at buildings myself and not getting a commentary. But okay, they had to do something to, I guess, reduce the abuse, but
mm,
I, I, it's such a beautiful location. So I think my main recommendation is, okay, figure out what you want to see, but don't be attached to going in August
yeah.
or in the hottest time of the year. I mean, you really do it.
Well, that's the thing about people who are older and like anybody who's over 50 who maybe they
Yeah.
don't have the kids. Because that was the thing when we were younger, it's kind of like, okay, we have kids. We have to wait till they're on vacation from school or whatever, right? There's that summer holiday perception. But you don't need to have that summer holiday perception anymore. You can travel anytime at all. I mean, and I'll have the similar situation I had when we went to Meteora. So in the northern part of Greece, there's a place called Meteora where these all these really cool rock formations, and they built these
Mm.
monasteries on
Oh,
top of these
nice.
insane rock formations. And we
Beauty.
drove up there, and
Oh,
I forget what month it was, but
driving.
it was it was pouring. Like
Yeah.
we stopped at a store and we bought those ponchos, and it was
Yeah.
pouring. But do you think that detracted from the experience at all? No, it was
No.
amazing. It was amazing. And you just have to say, you know what? I don't care what the weather's like. I'm still out going to experience
Yeah.
what I need to experience. And it was great. It was just
That's
fantastic.
exactly true. I mean, I've been in bad weather, and do you think it made me wish I hadn't come? No.
Yeah.
And even like totally hot. Oh, the first monsoon in India I ever did, I was like asking people about it because I had a 5 year visa for India at one point that I had worked hard to get because I was spending so much time there. I'd go over to Nepal, then I'd come back to India going back and forth. And I thought, I got to get a longer visa. This is ridiculous. 6 months isn't long enough. So I
Mm.
got it. So here I'm ready for, I'm thinking, oh, is the monsoon going to be terrible? It was great. There was this moment where me and this wandering cow was under an eave, getting out of the winds and the rain. Like it's 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 medieval.
Right.
And we're both there sheltering under this eave
Yeah.
because the rain is so hard. And I thought, this is, and the Dalai Lama lives down the street. Can't be too bad.
No.
And I'm
Can't be
just
too
thinking,
bad.
this is amazing that I'm having this monsoon experience. Sure, you get wet sometimes. So what?
Yep.
Tours cleared out. There weren't that many. Okay, the streets got muddy because they're not really paved that well. Okay, fine. So what? Get the crappy shoes.
Yep.
Whatever. I mean, you just have to adapt. And it really turned out to be my favorite time.
Nice. Nice. Well, say once you let's talk a little bit about sort of leaving the main cities because I think a lot of people think they
Okay.
have to go to the major cities. They have to go to
Yeah.
Rome, they have to go to Venice, they have to go to Florence, they have to go to,
Right.
London, Paris, whatever. But they don't necessarily need to go to those cities, right? There's plenty of other places that they can go, which are just as nice or sometimes even nicer than these big cities, right?
I think they do need to go to those places to compare
Right.
because I thought Rome was the end all and be all. But then when I got to Sicily, I'm like,
Mm,
oh my God, this is
right.
10 times better.
So you got to go through the gauntlet of the big city before you get to the enjoyment of the experience of the small city.
I think you have to really, because it's like things don't close as much in Rome. So when you get to a little city like where I was staying, things close between 2 and 4 or 5, and everything is just, and you just get used to. You're like, okay, fine. I can't get my espresso thing until, of course, you can always get espresso in a shop that's
Right.
open, but you can't get those little, So I'm like, okay, I gotta wait. You just get used to that kind of, and then everybody's out on the street doing the passeggiato, walking around thing. So I think you appreciate it more because you saw. I mean, it is cool to see the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican and all these beautiful museums in Florence, which has gotten completely ridiculous with
Oh, I
the
can imagine.
tourism.
I can imagine.
Even in January, I would say, you know spend at least a week, I guess, but go in winter because summer's going to be ridiculous. Because winter, I have a friend, one of my closest friends lives in Florence, and she can't even get her bike through the center of town.
Jeez. Well, that's interesting. That sort of brings up an interesting topic because I remember I had a boss once who I was saying, "Oh, you should go to Greece. You should visit Greece." And he goes, "Oh, no, no, it's too late to visit
Yeah,
Greece." And I'm
yeah,
like, "What do you
and
mean it's too late to visit Greece?" And he goes, "Oh, it's tapped out already." I'm like, "What do you mean it's tapped
it's
out?"
tapped out.
It's like, is there any place? I mean, are places like that? Would you say the Sistine Chapel is tapped out? I mean, even in the middle of the winter, because I'm not sure when you visited, but maybe
It was in
nowadays.
January.
No, but I mean, what year was it?
Uh, I think it was 2019.
Right. So, I mean, since then, there's obviously a lot more tourism. Do you think that there's that you can still have a quiet time even in the middle of winter?
I think you can.
Mm,
I really do. Okay, so one of the reasons I didn't go back to Rome this year, because I just got back, it feels like it. But anyway, was the Jubilee I was telling you about because
right.
that draws all these people in. Well, I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to report back when I go in 2026 that it's not going to be the same level of tourism.
Right.
So, I would still chance it because you don't know. Yeah, things do change every year,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they change that drastically. Like, living in Hawaii 3 years on three different islands, people would write me. My YouTube channel got very popular when I was living in Hawaii because so many people wanted to go. But honestly, there didn't ever really seem like an off time. Like it's always a good idea to
Well,
go to
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Hell yeah.
And
Of course.
there's a lot of, beautiful places to see. And it's kind of true of every country. Like if you like this very popular blogger online. I don't know if I told you. She was saying how, oh, don't go to the Amalfi Coast in winter. Everything's closed down. Well, I've been there twice in the winter and it's amazing.
Mm,
Yeah, you're gonna find a few things maybe that you wanted to do there closed, but in general, you can get on the bus. You can no line for the bus. You can take the train there. You can go anywhere you want. Most things are open. I mean, it's gorgeous.
yeah.
It's
Well, it's
so
open for the
pretty.
locals. It's like you're getting the local experience as opposed to the tourist experience. And some
Exactly.
people might want the tourist experience, but I prefer the local experience.
I do too,
Yeah.
because I really want to make friends with people that live there, try out my bad Italian. Like, you know what? A friend of mine said, "Oh, you got to take me with you and I'll interpret for you." Um, and because she lived in Italy for 3 years, and I had to be candid and say, it's better not to have an interpreter because then I get to have the experience with my bad Italian
Yeah.
of that person who's local helping me, enjoying my effort, and then helping me out with some word. And like I've learned so much that way
Mm, mm.
just by being awkward and uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
I'm going to try this with this guy. And then you end up being friends with this person. Like I have done the interpreter thing in other countries, like in Thailand, and it's not as fun because you're not having the interaction the other person is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
That's
not
true.
getting to know the other person at all. You're
Yeah.
just this tourist that doesn't know anything and you feel so stupid. Like you don't fit in. Like, oh,
Yeah.
and then I went to Nepal with my son who's fluent in Nepali, and he'd have these whole conversations with people, and I'd just stand there mute.
Yeah.
Like, what? And he, would kind of conversationally concise say what they said like later, but I didn't know why they were laughing. Like, I missed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right.
And it's fun to do this with people.
Oh yeah. So what do you say about like so you go through the big cities and you go to some of the smaller towns. Would you say you want to stay still close to that, or would you want to go out completely? I
Well,
mean,
it depends on what you want to do. I would say, okay, there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can do like I did this once in Florence the last time I stayed for 12 days. And so I based myself in an apartment in the center, and then I did these outside, went to Tuscany. Um and that was really fun,
hmm,
take the train and did this day thing with these. It was wonderful making pasta with these two guys that were really
nice,
fun in their home. They used to be like fashionistas in Milan, and they had just like changed their whole life to be like an Airbnb
nice.
experience.
How'd
And
you
now
find out
they
about them? How'd you find out about them?
Oh, because when I was hot and heavy in leading the photography experiences on Airbnb, they offered me a free something, and so I chose that Tuscany one because it was very highly rated. It was
Nice.
it was more high cost than the others, and it was worth every cent. I would do it again. It was that good.
So this is the Airbnb experiences thing, but
Yeah.
there's like all of these. There's a lot of these, right? There's like the Viator ones and the Get Your Guide and all these others.
Well,
So,
okay. You know what? The Airbnb experiences are highly vetted.
mm,
So, like, I had to go, they asked me to do it, but you have to go through a process. You can't, the thing about these Viator and all these other, you just can sign up and
oh yeah,
they don't
anybody could
check
do
you
anything.
out.
I go on there and there's like so there seems to be no curation whatsoever
There
because
isn't.
because you get but with the Airbnb ones, but do you have to be an Airbnb customer to take advantage of those?
No,
Okay. So you can
you
just go to the
don't.
Airbnb site and find experiences
Yeah,
there and those are
experience is up in the top menu bar, and they're revamping the whole thing now. They're offering services, so they asked me to be in that. So you don't have to stay in an Airbnb, but what I will say is that they're highly vetted, so you're going to get somebody good. All the ones that I've done have been exceptionally good. I've done
so
other ones.
so you would say stay at a city, stay in the city or stay outside of the city or
Well,
where would you go? Where do
okay,
you
so you got to ask yourself what is going to be your mode of transportation. So if you
right?
stay
Because
in
that's important.
Italy, I'm not going to drive.
No.
So if you don't want to drive, then you got
Driving
to
is
be,
fun in Italy.
well,
It's so
maybe
much
you
fun.
think so. I'm not gonna.
Mm.
No. My friend from Florence did the driving when we rented the car, and I made sure she knew there is no way I'm gonna drive in this. And
So much fun,
that's
especially the big city. City driving is the best
oh
in Italy.
my God. Have you tried Palermo? That's
No,
crazy.
I drove through Naples. That was
Oh,
fun.
Naples is crazy. You're right. Okay, so you got the crazy. You got the crazy.
I made it out of Naples alive.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's just nuts. I would highly recommend going though. I went to Naples for about 5 days, rented an apartment, had an amazing time. I would have completely not done that city, but my friend who lived in Florence, who's been everywhere in the world and all over Italy, said, "Oh, you gotta go. That
Mm.
place is incredible." And it was.
So would you
Food.
say how would you find these places though? So you do the Rome, the Paris, the big cities
I
first, and
think,
then how would you find the like
well,
off the beaten track type of places?
so you don't have to do it in any special order. I just think like it took me forever to get to Paris, but now I've been 6 times
Right.
and I think it's great. And I'm discovering stuff about it that I'm just amazed by. But I wouldn't have known that the first couple of times. So I'm saying figure out what it is that you want to do, your budget, and how you're going to get around. Because all of those things, if you want to stay outside a city and take a train, like I personally would rather stay in Sheffield than Palermo. Palermo for a couple nights, it's always fun. I know people there now, but it's fun to be in Sheffield, get on the train, walk to the train, get
Mm,
on the train, and be in Palermo in 50 minutes,
right.
almost an hour, and then just take the train back. Like I'm mainly going to be eating and walking there.
But if you spend most of your time in the city, most of your time in Palermo, doesn't it isn't it sort of a pain to just keep going back and forth?
Well,
Because you don't.
I didn't because I have done a lot of things in Palermo. But see, that's when you have to go, okay, what is it that I'm going to do? Am I going to do a lot of things? Like the first time I stayed in Rome was for a week. And I
Mm,
thought, okay, I'm going to get an apartment. I'm going to go and get groceries. And that was the perfect amount of time. Then the next time I stayed was 2 weeks. And then I started to think, oh, maybe I'll stay in a smaller place that has a train and I can
mm,
get to other places and do day trips. So see, for me now, I'm like, I don't want to move around that much. So if you want to go somewhere and base yourself there for however long and then do these day trips, then it's just going to come down to what are the day trips you want to do.
right. So it's best to stay outside of the city and then do the day trips into the city and then other places near the city.
Only if you're not going to go to the city every day because you might get tired of doing that, but it could be a much better financial for you to do it that way, or which I found you could still in the off season get a pretty decent place in the center of Rome for not too high a price.
Right.
But since I've already done it now I'm looking at other things in other parts of Italy. So you have to decide, okay, do I want to see the vineyards? Do I want to see Sicily? Do I want to see the Dolomites? It really depends on what you want to do and where you want to base yourself and how long you are. I mean, highly recommend at least taking a month.
Right. Oh yeah, you have to. I think you absolutely have to at least take a month for
Yeah,
a lot of these things.
for a
So what
lot
do you,
of these things.
how about being a foreigner or a tourist in these small towns? Because I'm assuming, you go to Rome, you go to Venice, you go to London, they're familiar with the tourists. But you go to these smaller towns, are they just as welcoming?
I found them to be even
Probably
more
more
so.
welcoming. Yeah.
I mean, I just was really surprised that very first I've been to Lourdes, Reims, the Champagne area in France, and now Nice and the French Riviera. And I, I found that everybody was very nice in the
Mm,
smaller towns and cities and of course the same with Italy. I'm blown away by how friendly people are in Sicily in particular. I've heard that's kind of a Southern Italian thing, but that's all I've experienced there. But I think even in Asia, in South America, if they're not like inundated with tourists all the time, they're usually more open.
mm. Yeah. because they don't have an experience. They treat you like a local because they don't know how to. They don't treat you like a tourist because you're like you're. They don't have that many tourists that come around.
Yeah. Or it's a season of not that much tourism and the tourism is going to come later. Like that's what I was finding right before I left Sicily. As shops were opening more and more, and I was having more conversations with people, they would tell me, "Oh, it's just so heavenly when everybody's gone." Even though, that's how they make their money.
And so the
But,
Floridians were saying that about Canadians who aren't coming to Canada, coming to Florida anymore.
oh, were they? Okay.
No, it's like it's funny because it's kind of a love-hate relationship with these people, right? It's kind of like on the one hand, you bring us all this money, but on the other hand, look at the way, things are when the place is crowded with foreigners. It's nuts.
Yeah, it is kind of nutty. I mean, we don't really know what that's like to have to live with, but, you know,
I mean, we do get tourists in California, but you have to go to those very touristy places,
but
right?
see,
Like,
it's so easy to get away from the tourism in California.
oh yeah, yeah,
I mean, I just
because
went
you
up
know
to
exactly where the
Oregon and
tourism is, and
yeah,
you just stay away from it.
you just don't go to San Francisco as much. I mean, I, there's so many ways. That's why you can do that in any country. You can get away from the tourism. You just have to figure out where the tourists are and not be there
Just not be there.
and
Well, see, that's a
decide.
good question then. How do you decide, how do you pick a place to go, right? If you're going to pick a non-touristy place to go, you don't want to you don't want to be in a city, but you do want to get that experience of being in those places. How do you pick a place? Like, how do you find a place?
Well, the way I've done it has been when I'm doing a long-term travel thing, I'm looking at my flights and I'm very open to where I'm going to go next. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is a low-cost flight. That must mean that that's not going to be a high tourist time in that location.
Ah, smart.
Then I'm looking at the lodging prices because like I don't know if you remember I told you, but I stayed in Nice in the center in January and then I went back and stayed there
Hmm.
in April and the price had doubled for the same thing. And I
Wow.
thought, well, I don't have to pay that because I can choose exactly when I want to come. And it was more crowded.
Right.
So why
But the
pay more for
experience
that?
in the experience in January and April was different. Was
It was
completely different.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm glad I went back because I did some things I hadn't done, and then I did some things I loved so much I had to do again. So I was glad that I did it. But it's always hard to leave Sicily. I could have stayed there longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that great when you find a place that's like that and you go, I wish I could have stayed here. I wish I could live here, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's really that many places. I've tried living in many places, and like I thought Thailand would be it,
Hmm.
and after so much time there, it wasn't. For various reasons. I don't need to go into it, um but it's a wonderful place to visit. So, and that's another place that you could be making the wrong decision about when to go. And I didn't know until I lived there that they have a burning season
Oh, geez. That
where
doesn't sound
there's
fun.
all this smoke. Like, we can't relate to that because of the laws of pollution here. And it's just burning everywhere. People are burning everything. And then it's hot. It hasn't started raining yet, and you're
Yeah.
praying for rain. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't spend so much time there. Because no one can even prepare you for, 4 showers a day because it's so humid. No, thank you. I mean, and I've lived all over Thailand too, in the islands, in the mountains, in non-touristy places, in a temple.
Yeah. Well, how do you find these places? Again, it's like you were talking about low cost flights to places, but how do you find these other places that you've moved to? Is just talk to the local people, or I mean, how do you get to that? How do you get to plan that out?
Well, you know what? Most of the stuff that's been good that's happened has been when I was on the ground
Right. So you have to get
talking.
there first. right?
Yeah, and that's something that I don't know if people have the patience for, but it worked for me because I would be gone a long time. And not just from local people, I would get advice from people traveling that, like, I discovered this little town in Myanmar
Mm,
with the most amazing botanical garden. I love botanical gardens. I would have totally missed that if I didn't have a conversation in a guest house with the guy who's in near Calistoga
right.
and was telling me you got to go there. And I'm like, oh, okay. I wasn't going to do that. But, and it was way up in the mountains, very
Hmm.
small town. They even did donkey and, taking people around and their coaches. And I'm like, oh my God,
See, that's why it's important to talk to people because everybody knows something, right? And you never know what you're
everybody.
gonna, and you never know what you're gonna find out. But that's tough for introverts who have issues just like talking to people.
Well, here's the thing that I'm trying to really help educate people about when you're solo traveling. Like, okay, have you ever had the experience of traveling with someone that you completely don't fit with? They wake up too early, they wake up too late. It
I
just
have
it
not, but
doesn't fit.
I have heard many stories of
I
people who
I
are like that.
have, and
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons I love traveling by myself because it's like you don't have to adapt to anyone else's schedule. When you're married, of course, you selected that person based on the fact that you two, like you and Susan,
Yeah,
you go well together. Well, these people that ask me to travel all the time, I don't even know them. I haven't even met them. Like, and plus,
and
it's
they have
very
the gall to
intimate.
ask you that. And
Oh
just like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
hey, I'm coming with you. You
It
going where? Where are
it
you
happens.
going? I'm
It
coming.
happens all the time. Because, I'm online on my newsletter, on my channel, everything. And it's like, I've been doing this alone for 20 years. I love it. Like,
Mm,
I'm not waiting for you to call me. I mean,
hmm.
I love doing the retreats and leading people. They're very small. I love that. When I'm doing my own personal travel, I love doing it on my own, having my own schedule. So, the reason I bring that up is that even if you were an introvert, like, for example, learning that thing about the botanical garden in Myanmar, I just happened to be downstairs asking something about my room in the lobby. Like, it was very humble. They were just opening back up to tourism, $25 a night for your own room in this guest house. And there were other people there that looked like they might from the United States. And I think they started talking to me. So, see, like you said before, you go to a party, you don't even have to start the conversation. People will come up to you
Yep,
if you
yep.
look a little bit open to having a conversation because you're in the minority. There's not many people. It was in winter again.
Hmm.
It was in
Hmm.
February in Myanmar. There weren't many tourists, but they were getting ready for tourists to come.
Yes, that's
So
actually a
that's
good time. That's actually a very good time, I think, because then they're more receptive and they're more open to that as well, right?
yeah, not at the end when they're
Tired.
just sick of everybody and no.
That's why it's good to go early in season.
Yeah. And so, and then they told me he was chatting with some other girls from Europe. Europeans travel a lot.
Yeah,
And then they recommended something else I later didn't even do because I had too much on my plate. And so
yeah.
um I always meet cool other travelers and it's not like I'm highly social, welcoming. It's just you find yourself in the middle of a conversation sometimes, and you're
Yeah,
just like, okay, I
yeah.
mean, these people seem friendly.
And especially when you're solo, it's way more, way more of a chance that you'll find yourself in the conversation as opposed to
Oh,
when you're in a group, you hardly ever talk to anybody else,
you
right?
won't.
It's rare. Yeah.
And, you might even be afraid to talk to other people outside of your group. I've seen that when the first time I saw it was in
Or people don't
Colombia.
want to talk to you either if you're in a
Yeah,
group, right? They're
yeah,
like, okay, I don't want to barge into this group, right? But if there's
yeah.
somebody sitting there on their own, it just I don't know what it's
I
weird. I
bet.
mean, we're in a tiny little restaurant in Paris, and we were all crammed in together. And there was a woman, sitting by herself, and we started talking to her,
Yeah.
and it's like she actually started talking to us even though we're a couple, right? And it's kind of like we had a great conversation, and like a
Yeah.
bunch of other people like started chiming in and talking too. We had this fantastic conversation, but I think had she not been on her own, then everybody would have just been siloed in their little conversation pods, and nobody would have talked to anybody else. So it's actually this solo travel who's actually kind of like the trigger to open those kind of conversations up. At least that's what
Yeah.
I found. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it took a long time for me to figure that out. But now that I know that, I want to dispel the myth of people being afraid to travel by themselves because you actually sometimes you have to work to stay by yourself because you get approached so often. Like I was on
Leave me
this boat
alone.
trip. Yeah, I was on a boat trip on in Chiang Mai. And I really just wanted to experience it myself. And this whole table came over of other foreigners from, I think they're from China.
Hmm.
At that time, China was just opening up for people to go to Thailand. And they said, "Oh, you're by yourself." Like, that's horrible. And why don't you join us? And I'm like, I'm really good here. I'm happy. Like, I didn't want to try and because I do that a lot. I do mingle with people quite often, and they're sometimes you do just want to be alone and quiet
Yeah.
and look at the view and enjoy your food quietly. I mean, really, it
And
sometimes
there's
it
nothing wrong
does
with telling
take.
people that. That's something that I guess you have to build that skill set, right? If you're going on your own, then you're going to be approached,
Yeah,
whichever way you slice it, right?
yeah. And so, they were very disappointed. I said no, but I thought, but I really don't want a bunch of people right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes when a big bunch of people ask you and they all know each other, you're kind of the one. Anyway, I just didn't want to be in a group right then.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was funny because it's like often you have to work to be on your own because people are very open to solo single people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So you've got to build strategies to figure out how to like not be pulled into that kind of situation. You have to basically just say no, right? I mean, you feel like you want to be on your own, and that's part of it.
Yeah, because you can get in situations where somebody just wants to talk at you and not really have a conversation. I'm a very good listener, but I
Yeah.
have discovered it's not true of everyone.
Yeah.
And so they might,
Really? I'm s-
yeah,
I'm stunned. I thought the
this is
human race was a race of listeners. I thought
a
that's all we ever
world
did.
problem. Oh my gosh. This is something. So you might get in a situation like that. You might have somebody hitting on you. Like all of these
Well,
things.
yeah, actually, I wanted to drill in on that one. Thanks for
Okay.
bringing it up. But like, how do you deal with those kind of situations?
Yeah. Okay. So
Of course, that's probably a show all unto itself, but
yeah, that is a show all unto itself. I think it depends on the country, but here's what I found. Because I did so many third world countries first, I
hmm.
got approached a lot. And
No, you're kidding, right?
what I figured out was no flattery. They just want to get out of their country.
Really?
Yeah. So, because it was over the top, and then I
Do they realize
realized,
it's over the top, or they think this is I'm being so slick here. I'm being slick.
yeah, they think they're being slick
Yeah,
and that you don't know. I,
you
I
can't
remember
tell.
this one guy in this surf town suggested we go to my place and take a shower. I'm like,
Wait, your place or his
no.
place?
No, it wasn't even his place. It was
It
my
was your
place.
place, right?
My hostel that I was in a tent. I mean, I was like hardcore
With
surfing
like a
that
whole bunch
week.
of other people.
Yeah, hardcore surfing that week in Juan Chaco, Peru. And he's saying, and I looked at him horrified, and he realized he made a mistake. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't mean that." And it's like, no, what you wanted was to marry me and get out of Peru. I
Right.
obviously, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I learned
Well, that's a
how,
thing, right? I mean, that's a thing all over the place. I mean, I
well,
know
you
I
got to be
told
careful.
I told you about that in Greece, right? The whole Kamaki thing. Did I tell you about that?
No,
before? Well,
no.
it's a whole thing. The Greek word is
Kamaki.
kamaki. It means harpooning, but
Oh,
it's ba-
but it's
it's like, Greek
uh,
men, they find these single women who are traveling to Greece, and they
usually
just
white educated women
yeah, yeah, usually from the north of Europe,
or
England,
north of Europe.
German,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah,
So it could be
those
from
are
anywhere,
desirable.
American, anywhere, anywhere. It's
Okay.
just foreign women, and they
Okay.
go, they have a fling while they're
Yeah.
there, and then
Okay.
they figure, okay, well, they're going back to their country, so I can go have a fling with another one, right? And it's the plot of Shirley Valentine. Do you ever watch that movie?
I did see that movie.
Yeah, do you remember that? Do you remember that
No,
movie?
I don't remember what happens, but I
she
just
goes she
love
goes to
that
Greece and
title.
meets a guy, and they do the thing, and she decides she wants to stay, and her family's like, "What are you doing? You got to come back and be a wife, right?" And mother, she's like, "No, it's like Greece is amazing. This is way better
Yeah.
than my life,
Yeah.
because she starts off like staring at a wall because that's what she does all day is like stare at her kitchen wall because that's all she's got. And then she goes to Greece and has this amazing experience of what it's like there, and then just decides not to come back. And then at the end, well, I don't know if I'm gonna spoil it for you, but her
No, I've
husband
seen it,
just
but it was
yeah,
years ago.
her husband decides to go find her, and she goes,
Uh-oh.
I hope he can stay for a bit. And I think that's how it ends, right? Is like she has this habit of going to she's at this taverna right on the water, and she gets a job at the taverna. It's like the guy who was Kamaki with her, like she comes back to Greece and he's like stunned. He goes like, no, no. It's
No.
like, no, no. She goes, it's okay. I don't want a relationship or anything like that. I just want to be here. So she gets a job at the taverna, and then every night she goes to the edge of the water and sits at a table at the edge of the water and watches the sunset, right?
Yeah.
And it's just such a different experience from what she had looking at a kitchen wall in her house somewhere in London, right? And then I think it ends with her husband like coming down to meet her at the water or something like that. But
Oh,
it's but this is a common theme, right? I mean, you're saying that all over the
well,
world where people are
yeah.
looking at, here's these single female travelers, here's a target, and whether or not they want to use you to get out of the country or whatever, that's a different story. But
Well, it's a thing though,
yeah,
because I think, and especially, okay, she was married.
mm,
She is the safety of going back to that, but if you're 100% single,
yeah,
you have to be extra cautious because I was like, I don't think this is just because of my personality that all these people are hitting on me. However, I found one of the reasons I like Europe is that I don't feel like that's happening in the same level that it did in South America, Asia, and Central
right,
America.
right,
Because most Europeans are pretty happy. Yeah, sure they got complaints, but they don't they don't have that kind of regard. So
right.
plus there's
They
not
don't
the
want to leave their country
ageism.
either. They don't want to leave their country. They want to
They
stay in their
don't.
country. Yeah,
They don't. And so they have it good and they know it. And so, and then the ageism is not as prevalent in Europe at
right.
all
Yeah.
compared to the USA.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
that's nice. So I talk to young people, older people, middle-aged, but like I talk to everybody
Yeah, you can
and
talk to
they
everybody
want,
there.
yeah, and they want to talk too. And they might not have any kind of romantic anything. They just like talking and getting
Yeah.
together. Like that's their culture. And so I love that. We
Mm,
don't have that here.
no, I wish we did.
Yeah, I wish we did because what I find is, I was kind of put off by it being on those other continents, thinking, oh, they're not really interested even in having a conversation with me because they're not listening at all.
Yeah.
And so, coming to Europe has been a breath of fresh air because I really feel like people want to find out who I am, ask me stuff, just enjoy a conversation. Maybe it's not romantic, but so what? Like
Yeah.
I've made so many friends.
I love it. I love it. So let's wrap up because we're getting close to the end. So
Okay.
your suggestions are go in the off season, like
Yeah, off, off.
flip the script on when you should be going. Like you don't have to
Yes.
go in the summer, you don't have to go in the high season. Don't go in the high season. Then you go to the big cities to experience these things. But there's a lot of things outside of the big cities to
A
experience
lot.
as well. And it's best to like get those out of your system first and then go do something else. Is that
Well,
right?
At some point, do it because
Mm.
those places are amazing and you should visit them. But, like I've focused on other areas of Italy. I still haven't been to Venice yet. I mean, I haven't
You
done
haven't
all
been
the
to
big
Venice?
things.
You
No.
got to go to Venice.
Yeah. So next time I was going to go this time, but because of the Jubilee, the train
Oh
thing
yeah,
wasn't how I wanted. So I'm like,
26.
nah, I'll
Go
just
to
go in
Venice in
26.
26.
Yeah.
That's probably
So
better.
that's my plan. And so, I can wait.
And do
You
not go to
don't
Venice in the
have to do
summertime.
it. And I
Do not go to
won't.
Venice.
It'll be winter when it's raining, and I don't care if it floods. It's fine with me. I'll have a
We
fantastic time.
we went in October and it flooded.
Yeah.
We were at the top of some what's the big cathedral there? St. Mark's or something like
St. Mark's.
St. Mark's Cathedral. We were at the top of St. Mark's Cathedral. We paid the extra to get to the very top so we could look out there. And the square was filling up. They were selling boots.
I love it. See, that to me seems like a cultural experience.
It was great. I loved it. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
So
this. Go ahead.
if you want to get traveling, come on over to my newsletter and you can do the workshop coming out very soon and get yourself traveling. It's a blast.
I love it. I love it. So I'll put everything in the show notes and people go direct. So thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you,
talking with you
Chris.
again.
That was fun.
See you later. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Oh,